Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, Connected Life peeps. Here we are again, and we got a really fun episode for you today. I want to say this is a men's only episode, so women, you need to leave.
Amen, brother.
No, women, we have a fun episode for y'all as well. But there's going to be some testosterone inside of this space, and some really cool conversations about emotions. So I don't even know, is that possible, Johnny? Testosterone and emotions?
Oh, absolutely. Testosterone. There has to be a way to combine those two words.
Testostemotions?
Testostemotions? Trademark Justin Stumble right there.
But Johnny here is not our only guest. We'll get into our extra guest here today as well in a second. But Johnny is Pete's husband, Abby's best friend, Pete, her husband. And you guys have
I thought you were going to introduce me as your best friend. Come on.
Well, Johnny, I don't know. Oh, this has gotten awkward.
Is this awkward?
Hasn't it?
Is this uncomfortable yet?
Johnny and I
it's fine. I'm Pete's husband. That's how I'm known. I've come to accept it. Everybody loves her more than me. It's okay. It's okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. All good with that. Yeah, I'm just Abby's husband too. But so you guys have been maybe hearing. We've been hearing some episodes with Abby and Pete. Johnny and I wanted to jump on. Johnny and I have been doing twice a month. Been part of a men's group online for, I don't know, a little while now. And that has been incredible. A bunch of guys
it's been amazing.
Yeah. Emotionally intelligent, and also just guys where we laugh, make stupid jokes, and sometimes we cry and we share and we support each other. You said that's been amazing. Johnny historically was not really a big emotions guy. And over the course of especially diving into the Pathway to Freedom, which is currently enrollment is happening right now. Johnny went through a deep revolution of his own emotional journey, and opened up where he started feeling during the process of editing all the Pathway to Freedom videos.
Oh, yeah. It was absolutely incredible. And honestly, even since then, like, I know I was on the podcast about a year ago and shared some of that, but the journey has continued even past that. Like, I think there's so much deception for men around emotions, as far as like it's scary or it makes you not a man, you're weak. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me is that I'm actually becoming more of myself, my true self.
Yeah.
And the fear is that you're going to, as you soften, you're going to be somebody that you're not actually being true to yourself as a man. You know what I mean? At least for me, that was a fear. And for me, I actually feel more like myself now than I did before this journey.
I would say this, Johnny, I'm going to throw this out there. Prior to you going on this emotional health journey, I enjoy you. I enjoy your humor. I couldn't really connect to you. I felt like you were off on another planet somewhere. And so we got the interactions where I could laugh and stuff, but then I was like, I don't know this person. Like I don't know them. And suddenly you started knowing yourself, it feels like, and then I could know you.
Well, I wouldn't let you connect to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let anybody connect with me. I wouldn't let my wife connect to me on that level, because along the way somewhere, either in childhood or in marriage or just, life throws so much at you. But somewhere along the way, I got this mentality that all people are unsafe.
Yeah.
Everybody is unsafe. Everybody is crazy except for me. And so I remember having conversations with you and with many other people where I consciously made the decision, I'm not going to connect to this person emotionally because it's not safe.
Yeah.
I wasn't safe inside of myself. I wasn't connected to myself, So yeah, our relationship has grown incredibly over the last year or two.
Massively deepened. And I would say that you're moving towards that best friend place, that
Yes!
safety circle.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm getting the authentic you showing up. And that actually is safe. When you have an exchange between two people who are authentically themselves, it's not unsafe. It's actually really safe because there's a bonding that happens. There's a camaraderie that happens. There's trust that's built inside of that space. There's you get to share things that are especially important to you with someone like that, and they get to become someone that holds space for that, has compassion and care for that. And if two people, especially men, can facilitate that, that's a bond that is not easily broken.
Well, and that's been so, I mean, we could do literally a whole podcast about this, but that has been so broken by the society that we live in. Totally. Like individualism and especially in masculinity, what it means to be a man, what it means to show up as a man. Most of us have taken on this identity that means that I am an island. I am alone.
Self-sufficiency.
I cannot have camaraderie with other people. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that
it's the world against me against the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And that is not good for your soul. That is not good for like who you are. You become somebody that you're not.
It's a recipe for heavy alcoholism and porn
divorce,
addiction,
porn addiction, all of this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Just trying to survive, and with that said, I know that as you've been coming out of that, you've been even helping to facilitate seeing other guys, get their freedom and stuff. And you have a lot of excitement around,
yeah. I mean, I've been starting to do consulting just part-time. Obviously I have a full-time job as a video editor, but it's been incredible how many guys believe this lie. 'Cause I mostly meet with guys, believe this lie that I'm alone. My experience is unique. And by unique, I mean, nobody understands what I'm going through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And every single one of them has the exact same experience that I've had, and every other man. You know
it's all the same story. It's not talked about. That's why they think it's unique.
It's definitely redemptive for me being able to even be on the podcast or coach other guys or all of that, because I mean, I'm coming up on 15 years of marriage in a couple of days, and I've made so many mistakes and so much pain over the years. And so I find so much hope and redemption in sharing the journey that I've been with, because I know the pain and I know the struggle. And even with our guest that's on today, the reason he's on is because I actually connected so deeply with his testimony of going through pathways, and because it's so similar to my own. And I think for me, the hope in all of this is that men who are in the same places that I've been, the same places that you've been, can find some glimmer of hope that the pain and the isolation and the suffering doesn't have to be the norm, that there is actually a way out, that there is actually a way to be more connected and alive,
Yeah, it's so good, man. Well, speaking of this, our guest we have on today, do you want to go ahead and introduce him?
Yes, Nathan is on with us today from Texas. And me and Nate go way back in the day when I was in a rock and roll band. My band played on a circuit of conferences, and he was on staff with those conferences as well. And his wife, who was not his wife at the time because she was probably 18 or something at the time. We're all getting old. But so we go way back. And then randomly one night I'm laying in bed and Pizzi leans over to me and she's like, "Hey, there's these people who are messaging me on Instagram who say that they know you from back when you were in the band and they went through pathways." Anyways, it was this whole thing. So Nathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So you went through pathways last year, correct?
Yeah, it was, I think it was like 9 months ago or so. Yeah, we went through that. It was prompted to go through from my wife.
Prompted. So. My wife grabbed my arm, twisted it behind my back and said, "If you don't do this, it's over for you."
Right. Yes. That is exactly what
no more fun time.
No more fun time.
No more fun time. That was her exact words.
Nathan, how long have you been married?
I've been married 6 years. April 16th was 6 years.
Wow. So. Okay. 6 years. And you've known her longer than that?
Yeah. We met, like Jonny was talking about, we met, let's see, 8 years ago.
Okay.
I think 9 years ago.
Okay. It would have had to have been, because I've been out of the band for at least 7.
Yeah.
7.5.
Yes.
So it would have had to been, a while ago.
Let's just give years to it. I met her in 2013.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so you got into marriage now. She now 6 years into marriage, you said, and she comes to you and twists your arm and says, you need to do this, or what? I mean, like, how did this all come about? What's marriage like for you?
Yeah, for sure. She started listening to the Connected Life podcast.
Yeah.
I think right when you guys started, like 2018, I think it was. I think that's when you started that. And she listened to that, and then eventually along the line, she actually did the LFA course.
Mm-hmm.
And did that course, the Living Fully Alive, and jumped into there. And she continually kind of was like, hey, you should do this. Hey, you should do this. Hey, you should do this.
Did she get progressively annoying with communicating emotions? And you're like, why is this happening? What's all these emotions being thrown at me? Or were you just like,
oh, for sure. Yeah. My common language was, emotions are dumb. They're invalid. Emotions are to be pushed aside, and then logic needs to come in.
How did that conversation end? Did you find that to be successful?
Yeah, no, I did not. Did not find that to be successful. Definitely not.
That feels like a recipe for the sexless marriage.
Yes. Oh man, we've all made those comments at one point or another.
You're like,
great.
It is not happening tonight.
Yeah, no, that's not a fun conversation to end.
Did you feel like, here's a quick question. So with the idea that emotions were, I don't know, stupid, dangerous, pointless, with that thought in your head, when you saw your wife start communicating in those ways, what was the judgments you had about her? Like, she just doesn't get it. She just needs some logic. I don't know. How did you process that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was hard to even connect to, because that brought up emotions for me too. And so
wow.
when that brings up emotions, I went to the same thing that I had always done. And it's always just suppress it, or, I have common language now, from Pathway, but I can identify a lot of the stuff now as oh, well, I was fawning, and I would just say what she wanted to,
wow.
Hear, and just get done with the conversation, or even just shut down and just be like, I feel sick. I'm done. I'm tired. I want to go to sleep now, and just exit, as softly as possible. So I didn't make it worse.
Yeah. Slowly back out of the room.
yeah, for sure. Just exit in a way that would hopefully, get to the point where I didn't have to have that conversation again.
Yes.
Because then if I have to have it again, the first time I didn't do my job. Right. So I'm get out and get safe, and then change the subject later. So
that is so real. Did she, this is one of the things I'm really curious about, because there's, a myriad of ways that people can respond to that behavior. But a lot of times I've found that women who come into my office, the scenario that you're talking about is the man kind of the husband placates the wife, and it's just yeah, I'm going to tell you what you want. I'm going to fawn. I'm going to try and make you happy and try and get out of the situation. And actually it infuriates a lot of women. I find a lot of them are just he won't show up. He's not there. He's so disconnected from me, and they get progressively frustrated. Now, I don't know that, again, that's a general experience I've had. It's not this across the board. I'm curious, how did she respond to that?
Definitely. I think some of those responses that you said were definitely in her wheelhouse. She's not necessarily the type of person that's going to be super angry and yell at you, from her response. But the conversation of I feel disconnected from you, or like, why can't we just communicate properly? Or, those types of things might have been pushed more into the conversation, which in turn just makes me feel like I'm not doing my job right as a husband.
Yeah.
And so you have that increasing like, self-deprecation in there as well of like, gosh, I just can't show up. I can't do this. This is too big. Like this is too hard. Which comes from the lack of compassion, because I can't even allow emotions in,
so real.
And so it's kind of that, cycle, that you go down, and that I was headed down for so long, a path to destruction, really.
So good.
What would you say, like, before you went on this journey, like when you were in that space, because we've all been in that space, and it can be so confusing for a guy because your wife is getting upset and you literally can't even figure out how to get to, it's like you have no map to get to where she needs you to be in order for her to feel safe. But what would you say, like, how would you respond before, like when you were in those situations to her, and like, how did that shift for you over the past year or so?
Yeah, for sure. The common phrase that I said in every situation is, I don't know. Like, how do you feel about this? Or what do you
Me too. That was so early on in our marriage. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I was a broken record. I said that about every emotion. Anger. I don't know why I'm angry. Why are you sad? I don't know. Like, I don't even know that I was sad. I don't know why I was, just frustrated or whatever it may be. Or, it's just, there was emotions that were running the show, and I couldn't speak that language. So it was like, I don't know. I have no idea for sure. And then like follow up with you on like, where have I gotten? There's one of the phrases I've said because I've taken now Living Fully Alive. And so just finished that course. But some of the things I was talking with a small group in that was like, I am like investigating the I don't know in my life, because that's what's most important, of like investigating where that's coming from. And that's really a step in a direction that was never thought that I would ever even take, even be on the trajectory to do that. So
how does that work itself out? Like if you're in a conversation with your wife now, I'm just curious, because for me going through pathways, that specific conversation has changed very drastically. So I'm curious.
Yeah, there's so much space now where it felt like everything was closing in on you, that conversation.
I know that feeling. Yes.
And so I think there's so much space to be able to express like, hey, there is big emotions happening in me right now. And I don't have the capacity to even continue on. And so there's space to like step back, and the ability to say, hey, can we actually like follow up on this conversation? Because I actually don't know what I'm feeling right now. I would like to find out.
Yes.
And so the ability to like exit conversations with knowing that it's okay to return, even because I was like exiting conversations where I'm like, I'm never returning this.
We ain't coming back to this.
Yeah, I'm running as far away as possible. And so that's been a dynamic change for sure, of the ability to just communicate. Even the I don't knows, like, hey, there's an I don't know, and I would like to come back to this, or even knowing that some of the stuff that I'm feeling isn't even what she's saying or what she's feeling. It's a lot of the internal stuff that I'm dealing with, from whether, like you said earlier, is like from a childhood or even from day-to-day life that life throws at you. There's stuff that you deal with. And so there's the ability to step back, which is nice.
Yeah, no, that's the one phrase that you said is probably the biggest change in my marriage after having gone through pathways, is that statement of, I don't know, but I can figure it out. I actually know now how to figure out what's going on the inside. Whereas before it's like, that emotion of closing in on you, where you're like, this whole thing is closing in on me and I don't know how to escape, and I don't even know how to communicate. I don't know any of this stuff. Whereas now the conversation can be, I don't actually know what I'm feeling, but I know how to find out. And so I'm going to go find out, and then I can come back and we can have a vulnerable conversation about what's actually going on under the surface, not just what the big level, like I'm angry or, like it's, there's always something under the surface.
Well, yeah, I want to add to that actually, because I think a lot of guys do know and they don't. And I'm going to kind of elaborate on that. They know what the surface level things are that they're feeling, and they don't want to say that because they know that's going to exacerbate it. So what they do know might be like, you're pissing me off and you're acting like an idiot. that might be like up at the top of the things in your brain, and you're like, oh, I'm so angry right now, or this is hopeless and you're a pain in the butt to be around. I just want to get away from you. Like,
stop criticizing my driving.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you feling? I'm feeling like I want to throw you out of the car. But if I say that,
that's so
you're
real.
going to throw me out of the car.
That's so real. I was telling in Pathway about even a situation of like where I had kind of identified that, or you had the ability to identify maybe even where that came from. And so I watched my dad do that so much. And we had actually had a conversation, me and my dad, about that as well, of like, hey, why didn't you say some of the things you were thinking? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I could visibly see that you were suppressing the thought pattern or the emotion that you were having in each situation. And he's like, you're really not good at like not sharing your emotion because I can see it. But you're good at not saying it. And so, which I then took on, and I was like, I'm going to be a master of that. Cause that's what I learned from watching my whole life. And so got really good at the same exact thing of like not saying verbally what I wanted to, but you could see all my emotions on me anyway, because it controlled the situation. And so it was just so good to have like, oh, well, I can actually, I like jump into or really dig into where that is coming from, and saying some of the things actually doesn't push people away.
Yeah.
Which was why he did it in the first place, right? And why I did it in the first place was like, I feel like this is so dangerous. The thought pattern that I'm having, and it's the first surface level emotion that you're like, if I say this, it will ruin everything, right?
Yes.
And,
yes.
And it's like, well, maybe if I identify maybe where that phrase is coming from, or that first emotion is coming from, then I can insert a little bit more of where my heart is. And that has changed my life. And that has changed my life, but it's also changed me and my wife together, because I can go, that really upsets me. And that's okay to say that.
Yes.
It's not okay to say like, I'm not even going to say the things.
I want to toss you out of the car right now.
I want to toss you out of the car. Yeah. And so it's like the big emotion that you feel right away, the trigger that you feel, even just spouting out whatever's there, but you can actually just say, hey, there's something going on.
Yeah.
And it's okay to sit in that, which was dangerous for me, was, on the outside before the Pathway for sure.
To be able to even say like, yeah, babe, there are emotions happening, and I can tell that I feel overwhelmed internally and upset and maybe out of control. And I don't know what's behind that, but I do know that like my anxiety's building and I need to breathe for a second, and I want to be able to get down. And again, the guy's anxiety goes through the roof, because if I can't throw the grenade, which is the surface level emotions that are not truly what we feel, but they also sound really horrible, so we just compartmentalize it. But if they don't know how to get below it and be like, what's below the grenade? I feel scared right now. I'm feeling disrespected. I'm feeling misunderstood. I'm feeling ran over. Whatever it is, as we keep going down. And this feels a lot like my childhood, like as we get to the vulnerable places of like, oh, this is so similar to like X, Y, and Z. Like when they don't have that and that tool to begin there, that's when everything starts falling apart. That's when we go into our fawn, our freeze, our fight. We go into one of the 4F responses, and we act out in some way, and it's not even showing our authentic self. So our wives are going, wow, you're so disconnected, passive, aggressive, like whatever it happens to be. And it's like, no, that's not who I am. Who I am is hidden and buried, and I just don't have a shovel to dig my way down to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the really ugly side effects of not being connected to your emotions and not being able to verbalize things is what you're saying, Justin, that where you shut yourself down. And I think you see a lot of men actually become different people from who they were to begin with, because you can't abandon one part of yourself without abandoning your whole self on some level.
Yeah.
Emotionally speaking. And so if you're abandoning yourself in this area of like, I can't feel angry, or I can't communicate, or I don't know how to show up authentically, you start getting the recipe that Justin was talking about, which is wives who are saying, where are you? Why are you disconnected? Why don't you, that kind of intangible thing.
Yeah.
That thing where you are now no longer the person that she fell in love with on some level because you're so disconnected. And it's because you have abandoned yourself. It's because, and you get further and further and further away from the core of who you really are, because you're not allowing yourself to feel like normal human emotions.
Nathan, you said you kind of watched your dad. What I heard you say is, I watched my dad abandon himself for some of the very reasons we're talking about. It sounds like, how did that, how you said that it kind of began to impact your life because you're like, oh, okay, here's a page from the playbook with dad. I'm going to institute that. How else did that affect you that you're aware of?
That's a big question.
If you don't mind answering, if you don't want to, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time like identifying maybe where each area is that it did. I'm sure it affected a lot. I mean, it definitely affected my marriage, or even relationally, of abandoning myself to make sure someone else is going to be safe, or is not disconnected, or I guess not even disconnected. That love is not going to be removed, or they're not going to walk out on me.
Yeah.
And so, in marriage, that looked like if I share those emotions, like my wife is going to leave, or she's going to be just done, And so I think that might be the biggest area that I can identify.
What was the parallel that caused you to draw that conclusion, as far as your dad goes?
Some of those I was in, rephrase that question. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good, Nathan. So I hear you saying like, oh, I'm convinced that my wife's going to just walk out and leave me if I do this. Like, was there something about your dad's relationship with your mom or something, or? For sure. I grew up in a broken home. So, my parents were split. So stepmom was there as well, and stepdad. And so, there's a lot of, I guess even watching how she reacted, like my stepmom reacted, which I'm sure was the same like pattern, that had previously gone on in his first marriage with my mom. And so seeing that, maybe that she would remove herself from the conversation, or even leave physically, sometimes just exiting the conversation, that was scary, right? Like someone that loved me now is going to be gone. And so that was
there's the parallel.
That was one of the most terrifying things as I got into marriage with Abby, and she would be like, well, what are you feeling? Because I watched my mom had a go bag at one point in marriage where she'd packed a go bag where her crap was in it in the closet. And when there was a conflict that arose that seemed painful enough, she would just be like, that's it, I'm leaving. And she'd go out that front door, get in the vehicle and drive off. And a few minutes later, my dad would get in a truck and drive off to try and find her. And there was this like terror inside of me because I didn't know, like, for all I know as a little kid, that person is not coming back. I'm not getting resolution conversations where she's like, hey, by the way, when I leave, it's just, I'm blowing off steam. I'm pretty sure I just got abandoned by my mom. I don't know if my dad's going to return. My little kid brain couldn't calculate any of that. And so even in marriage, as Abby would escalate in her emotions, because she could get pretty aggressive. And especially, you know, there was times where she'd be like, you're just being a chicken shit. You just don't want to share your emotions with me. You're scared of them. And I would go into freeze, like my brain would start locking up, and I would fawn as well. Like, oh, okay, what do you need? But I couldn't, the more I'd freeze and lock up, the less I could access the emotions. And what I realized is every conflict was me waiting for me to say something that was enough to make her go barreling out the front door, and that would be the end of it.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. You feel like every conversation you go into, you have to tread so lightly. Because if you step on a landmine, it's all gone. Like love is gone, right? The only person, I mean, I moved away from my family, all of that. So it's like, she was it, you know, that's all I had. And so, that is a pretty high stakes if you think about it in that direction.
Let me add this to the high stakes conversation. I think that this is necessary for, I think, women to hear and men to understand more about themselves. When we as men have said yes to an intimate relationship, we're actually deeply affected by that person, right? We may not show it. So a lot of men may not show it. They look self-sufficient. They have a relationship with self-sufficiency. So they're like, I got life. I don't need to let my my friends in, my wife in. But really, when the moment a woman threatens to leave, a man crumbles, because it's actually, you've gotten to a very deep place inside of his soul, and he is deeply scared of that loss.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, you don't matter to me. But the message, because of the way that we're relating emotionally, the message that seems to be conveyed is that my wife does not affect me, and it doesn't matter whether or not she's here. And so they're like, oh, this doesn't affect him. No, it profoundly affects a guy when it feels like you could walk out on him, if he just doesn't know how to connect to it and communicate it.
No, I feel that exact same thing. I was telling Pizzi that a couple days ago, of just like 15 years in, and I'm starting to realize that I am terrified of ever losing her.
Yeah.
And our whole life, she cried when I said that, because she's never heard me say that before. And we were talking about health, you know, like because she has migraine problems and stuff. And we were talking about like, if she would have ever passed before me, you know, and she burst into tears, because what I've communicated for 15 years is that I would be perfectly fine without her.
Right.
Not saying those words, but that's what's been communicated through how I am. But it does. And I think for you, Nathan, you know, I think all of us share this sense of learned behavior that's so deep, that we see how our dads related to our moms. We see how our moms related to our dads. And we subconsciously took in, this is how normal life works. This is how you relate in marriage. This is how you show up in marriage. And most of the time it's completely wrong.
I would agree 100%. The subconscious was running the show, and I had no idea, from childhood stuff you learn, and it's intentional or non-intentional from your parents. Like, you're learning by just being present in whatever situation.
Yes.
Is what I've been, you know, learning through, you know, Pathway and LFA and even life consulting. Is just, sometimes it's not about the logical, like logically my mom did this and I should have reacted like this. Well, it's like, as a kid, emotionally, I had all these huge emotions, and now going back, I can go, oh, I can walk into and go, yeah, that really did hurt, and feel healing in that direction. So it's been pretty mind blowing, pretty good.
Do you feel like, as you've been able to connect to your emotions and articulate them, are you finding that you're even building more confidence in your life process?
100%. 100%. It was honestly, compassion came in, is really where that came from. When I could have compassion on myself, I was like, oh, wow, like that feels good. It feels all tingly inside, you know? But I mean, at the end of Pathway was one of the first times times I can remember in a very, very long time, that I looked in the mirror and like enjoyed the person.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, like, I love you, Nathan. Like, that was not a phrase that I would ever say,
Right.
which is so, different. So, there was a teacher that actually had me do that when I was younger, and I didn't realize how much of an impact, it would have had. Mrs. Swanberg. So, Mrs. Swanberg, she made me look in the mirror and say, I can change, everything in the future. Like,
wow.
Like, I love you. And so, that was something that when I went back, it all hit, like the emotion of her saying that to me. And what, if I had grasped it, if I could grasp it then, like, what would have that looked like? Just things like that. It's pretty cool.
What are you discovering? Thanks for sharing that, by the way. I was curious, what are you discovering about yourself, like your authentic self? Because like we said, like once you get past the layers of the walls and all of that stuff that we're separated from, all of a sudden you start going like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is what I like. This is how I feel about things. This is, I don't know. Like there might be things that are standing out to you. Yeah.
I'm investigating those, like what I actually want. Instead of doing, what I think I need to do to get through life, like I need a job that makes this money so I can provide. I need survival,
right?
I need to survival
getting
for sure.
Yeah.
Super. And so I've been investigating that. Like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I actually want to do with my life? Where do I want to push and go toward? And so I don't think I have any answers at this moment. I have really been praying about even going into the consulting, side of things. And I want to put in the work to do so. And then I come out on the end and I'm going to be healthier and connected with my wife even more. But that's where I'm at right now.
That's really cool. It took me, I said, I used to say the phrase, my wanter is broken. Cause Abby would be like, what do you want? What do you want for dinner? What do you want? What do you want to do for your birthday? Where do you want to go? I don't know. What do you want to do? It would kind of turn around like that. And it took me quite a few years as I was connecting into my heart to be able to go, oh, this is what I want, to dig down to it.
Well, you lose that. I always compare it to like the Pirates of the Caribbean, where the like pirate ghost guy talks about like wine has lost its flavor and food has not like he has all of the riches, but because of the curse, like nothing matters to him. Nothing has any flavor to it anymore. And I feel that same thing all the time. And I think going on the journey, you reconnect to that. Life actually has meaning, and you're willing to go on the journey like you are, where you're like, I don't know the answer, but I am exploring my heart for the first time in a long time.
I would totally agree with that. Even the small conversations, the little things that, it's not always about like this huge grand thing. Like I'm going to do this and make all of this, it's like, what do you want for dinner?
Totally.
I don't know, and that was my common phrase. I don't know. And so I'm even like investigating those things. What type of ice cream do you want? I think was one of the podcasts there, but it's just really cool to investigate those even little things that do matter, which didn't have any weight to it previously. So,
isn't it interesting? Like, well, first off, making choices that are based on what we want versus what everyone else wants can be overwhelming because there's like a billion choices to be made. And so in some ways it was easier to not even want anything because it's like,
yes,
I will defer to the world around me. You just choose for me, whatever. I'll like,
sit down.
Yep. And then it can be overwhelming as you try to explore this because you're like, oh man, there's so many options. And little kids, it's like, little kids are oftentimes overwhelmed with like not having good parents that put in good boundaries. So like, what do you want? And the kid's like, I don't know. There's a billion things in the world. And so it kind of feels like, again, overwhelming at first. But then when you connect to your authentic self, you're like, oh, I don't want to have to go change the world. I just want to do this type of job and I want to connect with people in these ways. And it's pretty simple. I don't know. I talk about the idea of learning how to come alive. And that was really a foundational thing between me and God in my early on in marriage, in my first year of marriage, was just being like, I felt like there was this initiation of God being like, just learn how to come alive. I'm like, what does that even mean? And it was coming alive from moment to moment of like, what do I really feel in this moment? What would really make me happy? And getting out of that logic space is really hard, but you progressively are able to get there.
That exposes a lie that I think I learned and lived with, the lie of like, if you put yourself in any type of front running thing, that someone else doesn't get that, and they're not going to be able to be shown up for. Like if I have so much want or need or whatever, that my wife isn't going to get that. And so that I think was revolutionary as well, is like when I can show up for myself in my emotions, or show up for myself in sometimes even the wants, the little things, that I get to then show up even greater for my wife. And like, it seems backwards. And I think oftentimes we hear like, die to yourself, like just like suppress yourself. That way you can serve others so much. And I think I lived, and there's good in that.
Yes, there's good
to
in
a
that,
certain
for sure.
point,
To a
right?
point, yes.
But if you take it to a point where it's like, that's all you do ever, and you never feel anything back up, like you're going to end up just burning yourself out.
It's so true
for that as well.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is like, a lot of people are scared that if we connect to honestly what we want and loving ourselves and emotions, that we'll become selfish, self-centered people. And to me, selfish, self-centered people are people who have a black hole inside of their being, and they're constantly trying to find a way to solve it because they don't actually know what they want. They don't actually know what they need. They don't know how to actually receive love and let love land, like let it make an impact. So nothing is really making an impact. So they're like impoverished little children who have been orphaned, and they keep taking, but it's not actually filling up because again, they don't have a place inside where like, oh, okay, I'm going to let this need actually get met through people loving me loving myself. And so to me, when we truly love, we truly take care of ourselves, it begins to fill. There's a fullness that starts happening. And I'm like, I'm good. I actually feel good. I feel so taken care of. I can't help but actually want to give away and sacrifice myself for my wife and the people around me because I'm not running on empty fumes.
Yeah. And I think there's an awareness that comes to of what your heart actually needs.
Yeah. The actual thing, not just.
Yeah. The actual thing. They talk about that in Pathways, the flight response, the person who's constantly in flight going like, I've got to do this. I've got to have this. And a lot of us guys live in that. Like when I was in the band back in the days, and obviously for those who've listened to the podcast, you already know this, but like I had a drinking problem. I had a porn problem. I was a mess, and none of it made me feel any better. But it was the flight. It was I'm constantly searching for other things to fill me up. And then you go on this journey and you realize, oh, that thing doesn't help me. This is what I need. This thing, you start to identify who you really are and the things that actually fill you up and make you feel secure. And then you don't need to run to all of these other things.
It hones, right? Like you begin to hone in on something. So it's not this big amalgamation of all this needless junk that you're trying to pull from. It's just like, oh, I've honed in on something very clear of what I need. It's not overwhelming. I'm not all consuming everything around me. It's just this. Okay, great. And now there's enough space. I can feel
safe here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
I think I had to see that physically before I could actually get that emotionally.
What does that mean? Yeah, explain that.
Yeah. And so I work at a chiropractic office right now. And so like the way that our body is created, it communicates amazing. Like we were designed so beautifully. And so simply put, what chiropractic is trying to do is connect your brain, or the communication from your brain to your organ systems. Mm-hmm. And they use the word subluxation, which Latin, if you were looking back, sub meaning low and lux meaning light. It's just really cool to understand that simply we're trying to find a low light area or a dark spot in the communication.
Wow.
In your spine. And so when that happens, when you connect the light from your brain to the organ systems, electricity is what really it is, you get to then communicate properly, not just from your brain to the organ system, but your organ system to the brain. And it communicates both ways. And so when I learned that and have to actually teach people that on a daily basis, learning that was like, okay, well, that makes sense how I heal normally, right? If your organ systems can't tell your brain it needs help, it's not going to heal. And if your brain can't tell your organ system to heal, it's not going to heal. And so when I got to then connect maybe some of the darker areas of my life where I had removed love, where I felt like love was being removed, I could then communicate properly.
Wow.
Not only with myself, but also with my wife. And if you're going to take it Christianese, with the body of Christ, like I get to communicate from up top down, like inside me and out. And so logically, I got to go on a journey of like understanding how the body heals and what I needed, and actually get some physical like healing as well with that chiropractic, which is awesome. Which then gave me some of the capacity to actually take on my actual emotional, life and journey and what that looks like. And so healing goes both ways. Sometimes your emotions have to heal, so then you can actually physically heal because you have a disconnect from your brain. You're in a negative trajectory that way. And then physically, I was kind of in a negative trajectory, and after that turned, I had the capacity to take on more. So Nathan, that helped me out.
That is a great example to break it down. Like, I love that. That's actually really great. That's so helpful to break it down in that way and clarify. Especially, I feel like, I don't know, it's again, generalization, but we as men, like when you can create a picture kind of how something relates, it's like, oh, okay, I get that now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need
totally where I was at.
We need logic a lot of times. That's one of the things why I truly believe Pathway to Freedom is so powerful for men. Like, I'm the biggest proponent of it because of what I've seen in my life, but it's because it goes into so many things about not this weird out there, like emotional stuff, but like very practically, like, oh, I recognize that every time I am talking to my wife and out of the blue heartburn starts raging, like it's practical and logical sometimes where that journey starts, where you have to start connecting the dots as a guy. Obviously, generalization, like you were saying, Justin.
Right.
But I think that logic does help us connect sometimes.
Yeah.
Sure. Pathway for me, even like the first section was really logical,
Yes.
I felt. And which is, I know you guys designed it probably that way as well, because that's where a lot of us are holding on to. And they use a lot of really great analogies. But if you just hold on to the emotions, you do get that chaos on that as well. And so being able to kind of balance the two of them is, and logically going through the course was so kind of mind blowing of like, okay, I get that. And then you fight with the emotion side again. And then, okay, I get that logically, I fight with the emotion side again. And then they slowly start to implement this emotional side. And you're like, I can consume that a little bit easier, right? I can take that in and then spit it back out because I'm like, okay, that's too scary, but totally. it's a progression, which is really nice. And I think that was set up beautifully.
And that's one of the things in all of our stuff that we've done and that we have a value for is the balance between emotion and logic. They're both God-given, God-designed inside of our lives. And we as human beings are pendulum swingers. So we're like, oh, if this didn't work out for me, I need to just go exactly 180 to the other side of the pendulum. And that's where I'm going to find truth, because we're all about like, what's the word? I don't know if it's not ultimatums, but extremisms, or like Okay,
black and white statements.
Black and white statements of professed truth. The truth is it's only emotions. No, it's not. Only logic. No, it's not. It's the mixture, the balance between.
Gray is okay.
Yeah, gray is okay. Uh-huh.
And it was not okay previously, for sure. It was very black and white. Like, nope, emotions can be here because there is something like a death or a loss of something. Like, that makes sense.
Right.
Emotions in your day-to-day life when you're working, absolutely not. It's like white and black. And the gray has been okay in the last, 9 months. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. I'd be really interested to hear like your journey in your marriage since going through pathways. And also if there've been any like significant moments that you got to a level of connection or intimacy or whatever that you prior to this felt would never happen.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of little interactions I think have changed, but if you're going to take a significant moment, when I was going through living fully alive, I got to a point where I was grieving something that like a loss in my childhood that was logically didn't make sense. Like, if you logically look at it, it was a situation where my mom wasn't at a specific moment that she was supposed to. I was getting home from a trip and everyone's family was there and my mom wasn't there. And it's not like logically she's 5 minutes down the road. It's in the same town. Like, logically is all of this. And so I went through that moment and really connected with myself and was like, wow, that really did hurt. And it is okay to feel those. And so I got into a state of sobbing,
wow,
like weeping and crying over this moment. And then was able to walk into the bedroom after this call in this LFA heart sync that we were doing and going in there. And I went in and I just sobbed and cried in my wife's arms. I like laid in the bed and she didn't leave. Like, she didn't walk away. It was like, I had this huge emotion and there was anger in this motion and there was sadness. And I mean, sadness, anger really is just, what Tyler says, a spicy sadness.
Yeah.
So great. But going through these different emotions and like one after the other and communicating them out. Like, I'm just so mad that it didn't happen like this. And she's like, it's okay. And she would reach over and she could even touch me.
Wow.
And it was like, I felt for the first time, maybe not the first time, but like a reality in my adult life. Like, oh wow, I can feel these and it doesn't separate us. And I can be mad and it's okay to be mad, and I can be sad and I can be happy and all of these things. So that moment I think was like a pretty big moment in our life. And then it got too much. And then I had to separate myself. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go walk the dog because it's not going away. But it was good. It was a much more capacity than I think I've ever had to take that on and share maybe things that didn't logically make sense, but get to feel them and that. So I think that's pretty huge. There's a lot of other things, like just little interactions that are good. So.
Do we talk about sex on this podcast? Is that something you guys talk about?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I would just be curious, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but I would just be curious to know if on the back end of those type of connections, if you felt like even connection in other more spicy areas. Yes.
Just
because of my own experience, like you become more connected. Like, what has that been like?
For sure. I would say, yes, those conversations do. So there's a level of connection or intimacy that comes with connecting to yourself and then being able to let someone in that area. And so it's a logical progression for sure.
Yeah.
So what Jonny just said is, hey guys, get connected to your emotions. You're going to have some screaming hot sex.
I think what he was alluding to is you're going to have more screaming episodes.
Yes. So, yes. The frequency will increase.
Yes.
It's true because even in sex, like I see, how do I put this? For people who are disconnected from themselves, especially in the general way that people in the world are living our lives, sex has been minimized down to a physical action.
Yeah.
In a technique. And if you do the technique right, you're a passionate lover and it's supposedly good. And then people go on their journey of longer, more committed relationships. And oftentimes the sex, quote unquote, becomes boring. And now they've implemented adding all kinds of things into it to try and how do we get that feeling back from the beginning when things were so spicy and amazing and intense, and now it's just boring, and now we're looking outside the marriage and or the relationship, and there's this thing that happens because true amazing sexual encounters come in that place happen where we feel close to ourselves. The other person feels close to themselves. We feel close to each other. There's that connection point of I am fully here with you, present in this moment, and I am enjoying you and I'm letting you fully see me. And so people a lot of times they don't, I've talked to couples about this in the past and they're like, oh yeah, no, we have great sex already, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just work on getting you emotionally connected and so let's see what that's like. And then they cross that barrier. They get to where Nathan's talking about, where a man and a woman, especially the man, is able to access stuff and give his heart away with his wife. His wife is feeling so close to him, and they're coming back in the office and they're like, oh my gosh, you were telling us that sex would be incredible. And we were like, yeah, sure. But no, it's something you can't even imagine. You don't have words to put to it or understanding in your brain until you've actually crossed over and done the work.
Well, and I think there's so many things that when we're shut down as men that we communicate to our wives without meaning to.
Right.
I don't trust you. You're not a safe person for me. I don't care enough to go, all of these things that we communicate by being shut down.
Yeah.
And so I think once again, the deception is, like you've said, Nathan, that if we show up authentically, love will be removed. But the reality is us showing up authentically as husbands in most marriages is the very thing that our wife wants. Us having needs, us being human. And there's a connection that obviously spills over into really fun areas sometimes.
100%. It's and to think that you're the inadequacies that you have, the fear or the self-deprecation, don't show up in those areas of your life, even sex, showing up in that area, you're mistaken. It really does. And it will prevent the intimate connection that you are really striving to have, which you might not even know you're striving to have it because you're so being so disconnected. I knew something was off. Right. You show up and you're like, there's something wrong. There's an awareness there, but you can't identify it because you can't identify emotions. You don't have that language, and so definitely, change the game in that area as well.
Yeah.
So good.
When you talked about the tools or whatever, one of the things that, and we're getting close to wrapping this up, but, historically, I've said this, historically men, older generations have demonized, emotions with their kids and been like, suck it up, get over it, quit your crying, whatever. But I think that what happens is when a son, it's not just a cultural idea of this is wrong, this is stupid, but I think that when a son or a child enters into a space of emotions, right, and a father or an authority figure, like a man from the past, right? We're talking about generationally. These generations haven't been equipped. And so when they would have a conversation with a kid, a wife, that got emotional, what would be revealed to them is a deep sense of inadequacy, is what I'm trying to get to. So it's unconsciously, this man is going, I feel so inadequate. I don't know how to fix this. If you tell me there's a problem with the car and it's making a noise, I don't have a problem. I don't tell you to suck it up and get over it. I can go into fixing mode. I have tools. I know how to get under the hood. I'm using car as an example, whatever. It could be a myriad of things, but they go, I feel capable in this area because I have training in this area. Okay, we'll investigate that. But men historically haven't had any toolbox. So all of a sudden they're going, okay, I either have to admit right now to my family member, my friend, whoever it is who's having emotions, that I am ill-equipped, and that must mean that I'm a failure or there's something wrong with me. Or I can actually create a judgment around this area and be like, well, that's stupid. You don't need that. Emotions are weak. And that actually dispels this judgment about my inadequacy off of me, and it puts it back on you. You're inadequate because you're having emotions. Now just get rid of them, and neither of us are going to be inadequate. Does that make sense? What I was trying to get to there?
Yeah, you see it in marriage all the time. It's the man saying, like, the problem, I had this with Pizzi.
Right.
The problem is not that I'm disconnected. The problem is that you have too many emotions. It's that projecting
you're crazy.
Like, you're weak
right.
or you're crazy or not. I am completely terrified and lost, and I don't know how to help you.
Yep. And that keeps getting passed down. The cycle keeps happening.
Because it feels weak.
Generation. Yep.
It feels weak to not have the answer. It feels weak.
Yeah. I'm feeling weak because I'm feeling inadequate. I don't have an answer.
And feeling weak is scary. It's more powerful to feel like I'm good, you're the problem.
Yeah.
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 There's almost a tangible, like when you go through pathway, you feel like you exit, I feel, with a tool belt, in the sense of you have these tools, you have things you may not be able to use, like, I don't know, take a welder. Have any of you welded before?
I have.
I wish.
Right. So when you first welded something, did you burn through the metal, or did you get a perfect weld?
I burned through the metal. I stuck stuck it to it.
Yeah. And so sometimes you even have these tools that you're like, okay, I have these tools, I have this in my tool belt, but I don't even know how to use it yet.
Yeah.
And it's like, it takes so much practice. And it's like, I jokingly said a while back in this pathway, I was like, man, I started this 10-week course and it's going to be 30 years before I finish, and it's like,
Totally.
but that's okay. And that's so good. I'm excited to continually use those, like the welder, and, what actual measuring stick I need to be using, and those types of things. If you want to get into the analogy of tools, for sure, there are tangible things you can walk out and go, okay, I have this, I can go ahead and apply it. And if I don't get it right this time, I'm practicing, I'm going to continually on that journey.
It's so funny when you say that, because as a side note, I'm literally at an arc welder in my head back when I was about 13 and I started trying to use the arc welder, and my dad was trying to teach me, and it was just like mess. I'd create one mess after another out of the metal. I'd stick the what's it called? The arc. Trying to think of the piece.
Like the what?
No, it's not, because it's not wire feed. It was anyways, I'd get it stuck to it. My brain's I'm tired this morning, and there'd be this infuriating thing initially, because I'm like, I'm trying so hard to give this perfect weld. I'm literally trying, and my dad's over my shoulder being like, come on, you can do this. I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. But it eventually, over the next couple of years, I got to the point where I could make some pretty decent welds. But what was cool is it wasn't like, oh, I just learned how to weld. It was, I just learned a tool to build entire things that would matter to me. Like I participated in helping build a trailer so that we could go haul a bunch of stuff out camping and things like that. And it's like your life begins to expand all of a sudden when you're willing to put in the hard work on the initial, like, oh, this is so frustrating. I don't get this. It doesn't make sense to me. And if you can get over the barrier of, I feel like I'm failing, right? Mm-hmm. To just be like, yes, I should have grace for myself. It's going to take some time, but the payoff is going to be relationships that are deeply connected, friendships that develop, opportunities that happen inside of my life, all kinds of goodness.
100%.
Yeah, it's so good. And it's so encouraging because the more you get into it, the more momentum you build.
Yeah.
You know, just like that welder, like you start by just knowing how to turn it on and not kill yourself.
That's true.
You know, and then a couple years down the road, you're making stuff that's amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And that is what this journey is, even with Pathways, you know, like your first step might just be figuring out what's going on inside of you, even if you don't know what to do with it. But over time, you start building really beautiful connections because you're able to connect to yourself.
Yeah.
So good, man.
One of the things that I wrote actually at the beginning of LFA, but I think it was born out of like taking that first step and feeling the inadequacies and the like, this is not like, I'm not gonna like, this is horrible. Like I'm bad at this. Like this weld looks horrible. You know, I wrote a little thing and I can't find it, but I'll just kind of paraphrase of like, it was just, I'm so proud of you for taking a step.
Yes.
Like you took a step, you're moving in a direction. And even if you don't feel like it is the right direction or like you felt like you took a step and then you took 2 steps back, like you took a step, you know, and it's like just being proud of the moment that you're in and like taking a step in a direction. It builds that momentum. And I had to read that on a daily basis because I was like, this sucks. And then I was like, okay, I'm proud of you for making a step. Like you took a step, you picked it up and you didn't self-deprecate for as long or, you know, whatever,
totally.
You know, like,
yes,
you know, you did a emotion in a way that wasn't previously, you were able to, you built you literally built a pathway, for that. Yeah. And so you're continually kind of drudging down the snow of that. And it's like getting in a direction that is better and better, but it's one step. Like just take a step, one step and be proud of it. Like I took a step, and if you never take one for another 2 years, like you took a step, like at least you took a step.
Yes,
you know?
Totally.
So
yes, no, that's so good. And you got to celebrate those little wins. You got to celebrate them. You got to celebrate the bravery it takes as a man to even go on the journey at all in the first place. I mean, it's terrifying for most of us. And so even celebrating yourself and that and being like, you know what, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you that you're doing this. Like that is so crucial. And I feel personally, like, honestly, like I feel such a sense of proudness towards you, even on this call of like, man, like what amazing transformation has happened in you in such a short time. Like you can just see it in the way you're communicating, in what's happening in your marriage. Like I feel so proud of you for going on that journey. It's not an easy thing to do.
And what's cool, I'll add this as we wrap it now. I just want to say, Nathan, that you articulate yourself really well. And I think that, you know, there's probably a lot of things that add to it. I think one of the gifts is your strong connection to logic, because you've actually been able to probably use a lot of your logic to, with the right understanding of tools and stuff, like use that to investigate and then articulate. And so there's a lot of guys that are listening that like your logic is going to be so necessary in throwing you forward as you connect with your emotions. Again, they can go hand in hand. It's going to cause you to have to get into feeling somewhere inside of yourself. And then your logic is going to help you like navigate it and get clarity. And Nathan, you're just doing such a wonderful job of giving us clarity about where you're at and stuff. And I just really appreciate the richness of what's going on inside of your journey.
Appreciate that. Receive that. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, man, you're so very welcome. And with that said, you guys, as you've been listening to this, you can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com, to learn more about the Pathway to Freedom and to sign up if that's what you want to do. You can just go there, jump on courses page, and you'll find it all. But I think that you can't lose by taking a step in this journey. There's no loss. There's no loss. It's only benefit. It's only win.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that said, to these two guys, thank you both for joining me here. It's fun having man time. I miss just having man podcasts.
It's good.
Mancasts.
Mancast.
So good. No, I've loved every minute of this. I think there's such a camaraderie, and man, you guys are the best. And
hey, speaking of camaraderie, the last thing I'll say, if you're still listening out there, guys, this is something like, if you can get yourself and other guys that you care about into something like this and start getting articulation, you're going to build deep wells of relationship that are going to be so far superior than any of the experiences you've had thus far in your masculine relationship. So grab a couple buddies, be like, hey, let's jump into this together. Let's become the best versions of ourselves as husbands, as fathers, as friends that we can be, and explore this. So yeah, that's what we got for you. Any last departing words, Jonny?
Not from me. I'm going to go play Lego.
Yeah, you are. Jonny got into Legos recently, so can't wait to see your build.
Can't wait. So good.
Nathan, any departing words?
Just thank you. Appreciate it. I'm excited for the journey, and just take that step, guys. Anyone that is thinking about it or just hearing about it, take one step and see where it leads you. It is so fulfilling just to take one step. So
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
And for any of those people who've been listening for a while and been part of our programs, right now there's an application process for our Life Consulting Masterclass, a year-long thing where you can go into the deepest places of your heart and come out with the potential of being a life consultant. And we're having incredible response from this year's class, and we got some videos that are going to be along with that we're going to share. But if you want to know more about it and get on our list to get deep dive into that potentially, you can email us at lfa@stumvalconsulting.com. Do it quick because there's going to be a short window for it, and class is going to start up for the full year long coming in September, end of September or October. So yeah, email us, and peace out, everybody. Bye.
Adios.
Now.